Grand Theft Auto 5 fatigue is a very real problem. After a decade's worth of support with no new releases and titles, it's normal for people to start getting bored and look for alternatives. But with modern gaming being what it is, Watch Dogs Legion fell so flat that Ubisoft discontinued the entire franchise, Saints Row was such a success that it bankrupted the entire company, and Mafia seems to have gone into witness protection. So we find ourselves with no real alternatives. And with Grand Theft Auto 6 still a long road away, all the way into the fall of 2025, it means we have to look backwards instead of forwards. And there is one game that can do that trick. A game with rich features and brilliant storytelling so good that it easily rivals Grand Theft Auto 5, but it also doesn't feel dated by comparison. A little gem by the name of Grand Theft Auto 4. Now, we've often talked about the term dead open world, usually used to describe a world that feels empty and void of detail and immersion. When you talk about Ubisoft titles, it is used quite a bit. However, in order for you to understand it properly, you need to see the exact opposite of that, which in this case is Liberty City. One of the most important features of a great open world is one that keeps moving and evolving independently of the player's actions. Instead of brainless NPCs who run around in circles with no real guide or reason, NPCs have their own independent lives. You just happen to witness some of them as you drive past. There are cops performing traffic stops and chasing criminals, people fixing their cars on the hard shoulder, parking their cars when they arrive at home or work. You see people taking cash from ATMs, postmen collecting mail, repairmen working on wires, and street musicians playing in parks and bars, among many others. Pedestrians will also react to environmental changes such as rain and cold weather. But that's not all. You're not just a witness looking from afar. There's plenty of ways for you to become involved with a citizen's daily life through the Strangers and Freaks missions, which allow you to meet a stranger on the side of the street and help them out with a certain task, from defending them from bullies to investigating marital disputes and much more. However, the map itself has quite a few unique locations as well. At any time you can go to see a show, or participate in a race, or grab a bite from a nearby food vendor, or a restaurant. All activities that can be done alone or with a friend. The world is full of opportunities and is yours to interact with any way you see fit. That's what makes it feel alive. The feeling of unlimited opportunities seemingly behind every street corner. A world that allows you to both be a witness and a participant in its existence and its civilians' lives. And of course, we can't speak about the city without talking about the euphoric physics, creating the most realistic animations in gaming history to this day. Instead of already made animations, NPCs and the player have completely independent ones depending on the action they happen to participate in. They respond to the environment around them, making falls completely unpredictable as they use a real-time simulation based on the environment around them and the action performed. Never had a developer brought such comprehensive motions into a feature-packed open-world game. And lastly, of course, we have to talk about cars handling. Unlike previous entries, there's an extreme level of realism put behind every vehicle's driving mechanics. Vehicles felt like they had a real weight behind them, making a turn more difficult depending on the speed you were doing and the car you happened to be driving. Stopping and turning was a lot more difficult because of it, as now players had to judge stopping distances and turning speeds, just like in reality. But that wasn't all, as cars were now far more destructible. They would now bend exactly where the impact had occurred and become a lot more malleable and susceptible to outside forces. But wait, there's more. The combat is split into melee and shooting. Melee gives you two different controls for your kicks and punches. There's also a block button that, if held, will simply block and receive less damage. But if you press it at the right time, right before an attack, the character will perform a dodge and hit back with a combo that will drain quite a lot of health from your opponent. While the shooting mechanics are quite stable and easy to aim with, at least on mouse and keyboard, I found most weapons relatively easy to control, with a pretty consistent aim radius. However, the cover system isn't quite great. You'll still take a bit of damage even in cover, and it's very difficult to shoot from it, as you have to first select a target and then fire. But with enemies in cover themselves and moving around, it's very hard to make that one shot matter. Overall, I'd say it's better to just crouch behind cover than actually using the system itself. However, that's a small gripe, if any. For a game that came out in 2008, Grand Theft Auto 4 was simply an unbelievable accomplishment. In 4 years, Rockstar created a game that was miles in front of any other developer in history, a game that is yet to be matched by any of their competitors. It's no wonder then that it brought incredibly high scores from both critics and players. But despite those great achievements, the incredibly limited hardware the game was developed on meant that there were quite a few demons hiding in the background. Everybody on the ground, suka! Put the money in the bag! When you're making something new, it's normal that sometimes things go a little out of hand. And when that happens, you need to put all of your resources and effort into the core elements of the game. I mean, think about it, in just 4 years, Rockstar had a brand new engine using Euphoria physics, a new vehicle handling system, and a giant open world. It meant that they had to put all of their work on the core elements of the game, and anything that wasn't crucial to the overall outcome pretty much got sacrificed in the process. Sadly, some of those sacrifices are still haunting us to this very day. For starters, the new vehicle handling system made it very difficult for cars to get away from police, as making tight turns and fast changes of direction is almost impossible even in the most high-end vehicles. Though it's a small problem in the overall driving experience, it becomes very noticeable when you find yourself in hot pursuits, and although the car handling is mostly done well, the same thing cannot be said about motorcycles and helicopters. As someone who practically lives on a motorcycle, I can confidently say that Grand Theft Auto 4's mechanics are some of the worst I've ever seen in a game. Motorcycles in this game have the turning radius of a giant boat, with Nico hanging off the side like he's a MotoGP rider, despite barely doing 20 miles per hour. The stopping distances are incredibly long, and for some reason bikes handle more like a drift car than an actual motorcycle. It's safe to say that very little, if any, time was spent working on their handling. And the same thing can be said about helicopters. Thankfully, only driven in the story mode a few times, they can be miserable to operate. They are not nimble at all, and it's very difficult to change direction as fast as you often need to. And there's more problems when it comes to vehicles. The game features 123 vehicles in it, which is an extremely small amount in comparison to the 212 of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. However, it's even worse than that, as I'm assuming for memory reasons, you only see about 10 types of cars at any given moment, as the game duplicates your car and the most common cars in the city and recolors them, meaning that even if you own one of the rarest cars in the game, as soon as you get in it, you will see it everywhere, all over town. However, if you lose it, it will be practically impossible to find it again, as now the game will either copy the new car you've chosen or go back to the neutral vehicle models. It can make the game a living nightmare when searching for a certain vehicle, and customization is not much better. Car customization is only limited to recolors at pay and spray. You have no control over which color your car will be given either, so you usually have to go in and out multiple times until you're given a color you're happy with. Character customization is almost just as limited. There are no haircut options, tattoo parlors, or gyms, and the clothing selection is especially limited, with only a few clothing stores across the map, most with a very limited options. And for those of you unfortunate enough to not have played this game at the time of release, or soon after, you will find yourself with a very different musical experience, as a vast amount of songs have been removed after the game's 10-year anniversary, including the one which plays during the actual intro mission. Thankfully, there are PC mods that can help you get it back. Missions have no checkpoints in them, meaning that if you fail, you have to start from the very beginning. Thankfully, Rockstar thought about that and added alternative dialogue to most missions. So, when you're driving with a partner, you at least have an alternative dialogue to listen to. And although it's true that inviting friends to go bowling or play darts can be fun, the constant phone calls you get while traversing can become very annoying, especially as turning down their offer will result in them feeling let down. As any game, Grand Theft Auto 4 has its weaknesses. However, given the time window in which Rockstar were working in, I can't say I blame them too much for making these sacrifices, especially given how well they've executed the core elements of the game, the incredibly dense open world, the fun and interactive combat, the realistic driving mechanics, and vehicle destruction, more than make up for some of these small nitpicks. And speaking of great core elements, we have to talk about the story, especially given that it's possibly one of the best stories in gaming history. The story of Grand Theft Auto 4 is one very much grounded in reality. Much like its world, this isn't a Hollywood production with planes and crazy stunts like previous games. There's no infiltrations of military bases to find top secret jetpacks or any goofy over-the-top scenarios. It's a story that is told more like an episodic documentary rather than a full-blown Hollywood production. It's a big reason why Grand Theft Auto 4 is well known to be the most immersive game of the series. It's because even at its wildest and most violent moments, nothing seems off from what could happen in an alternative reality. And unlike many fictional crime stories at the time, Grand Theft Auto 4 does not glorify the life of crime as something cool and adventurous, but a tragic and often depressing reality in which most participants always lose more than they gain. Any, even remote success or feeling of peace is shattered by some kind of horrific outcome. In the end, crime takes away far more than it ever gives its participants, including Nico, despite him being a man of honor and great focus, a man who always declines alcohol, drugs, and cheap pleasures. He's still continuously tainted by the darkness of the path he's chosen, yet he remains a good man underneath, one who will always help a person in need and stand up for the people who can't. However, despite that being the main plot, it doesn't mean that it's all dark and gloomy. Quite the opposite. Through Liberty City, Nico will meet all types of colorful characters and diverse personalities. Laszlo Jones' work truly shines through here, as this is one of the first Rockstar stories to openly parody the realities of Western societies at the time.
The show for men by men. In the men's room with Baz and Jeremy.
And if a woman walks by, the only thing you need to do, whip it out and say, what are we going to do about this?
John Hunter wants to be your governor, but he hates our troops so much, he wants them to cut and run and come home cowards. John Hunter has lost an erection more than once and disappointed his wife much in the same way he'll disappoint you.
Remnants of tropical storm Jehoshaphat coming through, lots of rain. This storm passed over a lot of third world countries before getting here, so expect it to smell. Julie McCafferty, Weasel Weather.
In combination with Dan Houser's brilliant story writing, they created one of the best written games in history, a game that is soaked in human emotion, immersive and real, that will make you laugh and cry, seek for answers, and hunger for vengeance. An emotional roller coaster that every gamer needs to experience. Grand Theft Auto 4 is a great representation that what makes a great open world game is a level of difficulty of 5 and an execution of 10. Think about it. What Rockstar have really done is they've taken the very simple formula of an open world crime game and they've just made all the core features as good as they can possibly be. A great and immersive open world, fun driving mechanics, interactive combat that is easy to pick up, and a well-written story. 4 elements, that's all you need to have a fantastic open world game, which makes you wonder even more why there's so many other developers who screw it all up. But with Laszlo and Dan Houser both leaving Rockstar, it's only a matter of time to figure out if Rockstar still remembers those core features. And now that we've explained what they are and how to do them well, join me next week to see how Ubisoft screws them all up. So, until then, this has been Wild Gold, and thank you all so very much for watching.